President Biden called Vladimir Putin a war criminal today for the invasion of Ukraine. The Senate passed a resolution to investigate the Russian president and his government for war crimes. How much teeth does any of that really have? Doesn't the International War Crimes Tribunal need to get involved?
Yes, and the case has been referred to them by a unanimous vote in the United States Senate, and I fully support it. If you'd have seen the video that President Zelenskyy showed us today, you wouldn't have forgotten it. As a parent and a grandparent in America, if you watch that video and see those lifeless corpses of those little kids who have been killed by Vladimir Putin's missiles and bombs, you would believe, as I do, this is the most outrageous thing done in the Western world in this century. And Vladimir Putin has broken every single rule or convention. He should be referred to The Hague, the International Criminal Court, for his criminal conduct.
Now, you watched and you listened to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy's speech by video at the Capitol today. President Biden responded by announcing another $800 million in military aid for Ukraine. That's part of the $14 billion in support for Ukraine signed into law last week. A lot of this is in the form of missiles and military equipment. It's not clear if Ukraine, though, has enough manpower for all of it. How much should the United States be willing to commit to help?
Well, we are leading the world in our commitment to help the Ukrainians resist Vladimir Putin's barbaric, unprovoked invasion. And I'm glad that we are, and I supported that $14 billion for that purpose. But let me be honest with you. The people of Ukraine are outmanned by a margin of 4-1 by Russian soldiers, and they're still holding their ground because they're better fighters and they're prepared to die for their homeland. The Russians are coming in there thinking this was some military exercise, and now it's turned into a vicious war that kills innocent people. So we're going to help these people, these freedom fighters in Ukraine, and I'm glad the United States and the President are doing that.
Well, does the United States have a clear mission in this? What is the end game?
Stop Vladimir Putin. This invasion of Ukraine, taking over a democratic nation that simply wants to be left alone, is unacceptable and unforgivable. If he gets away with this, God forbid what he'll do next, whether it's Poland or the Baltics or who knows. He's a madman when it comes to his ambitions. He wants to create some greater Russia. Well, I can tell you, the Russia he's trying to create will be a lesser Russia in the eyes of the world.
Do you see the United States acting like it did against the Soviet Union when it invaded Afghanistan decades ago and basically supported the Mujahideen in that effort until the Soviet Union was defeated? Do you see this ongoing like that?
The invasion of Afghanistan took place after 9/11. We were told that Al-Qaeda, which was responsible for killing 3,000 innocent Americans, was headquartered in Afghanistan, and I voted for it. We went after them. We eliminated them and Osama bin Laden in the process. But in terms of dealing with Russia, we are realistic. We do not want a wider war, a larger war beyond Ukraine. We certainly don't want chemical weapons used, and we certainly don't want this to ever reach the nuclear weapon phase. President Biden is trying to take thoughtful steps to support the Ukrainians without provoking a wider war.
President Zelenskyy reiterated his call for the United States to enforce a no-fly zone. The president hasn't committed to that yet. The U.S. did enforce one during the Bosnia-Herzegovina conflict. Why not now?
Well, I can tell you that this is a decision that won't be made by the United States alone. We are part of an alliance, maybe the strongest alliance in the world, NATO, and the nations of NATO have to come together. They share our concern that this may escalate the war to a level which would take it beyond the boundaries of Ukraine. I don't want to see that happen. I do believe that President Zelenskyy has a legitimate concern here. We are considering weapon systems such as surface-to-air missiles, which can be sent to his fighters in Ukraine to knock the Russian planes out of the sky. That wouldn't involve a no-fly zone, it wouldn't involve Polish MiGs, but it would achieve the same result.
What about just a stronger show of American force simply by manpower along the Ukrainian borders? In this case, this would be on land, but similar to John F. Kennedy's naval blockade of Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Let me tell you, the naval blockade was important because it stopped the missiles from reaching Cuba, but we're doing that and more. The sanctions program against the Russian economy is going to be devastating. It's not going to happen in the next 48 or 72 hours, but when you have over 400 American corporations pulling out of Russia, when you have the nation of Russia facing a default on their national debt, it's going to be felt. The value of the ruble has been cut in half in just a few days. People on the streets of Moscow are going to ask what in the world's going on here, and that's exactly the result that we want to achieve.
Let's switch to the economy before we go, Senator. Today, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates by 1/4%. It's the first increase since 2018. More are expected this year. The country, as you know, seeing high inflation not seen in 4 decades. What difference do you expect this to make? And are there other approaches you want to see Congress to take specifically to address inflation?
Inflation is a real challenge in the United States of America. Having said that, we're not the only country on earth that's going through it. And it's generally for the same reason most Americans understand. COVID-19 turned our economy upside down. We took off a year. We stayed home a year. Businesses shut down for a year when it came to production. And then when it started opening up, thank goodness, COVID-19 started being eliminated. We saw a demand from American consumers and families much larger than the supply of goods and services that we had. So the supply chains and others are trying to catch up with demand in America. In the meantime, prices are going up. Limited supply, overwhelming demand. So I think we've got to move in Washington to find ways to reduce the cost of living for the average family. That should be our #1 goal.
Any specifics for that?
Well, there have been suggestions of eliminating temporarily the federal gas tax. That's a small amount of money, but it would be helpful. There are other things we've talked about. One I'd like to see is the government get involved in prescription drug pricing. We need more competition on prescription drugs. Families that are dependent on them know that it's a major part of their expenditure beyond insurance coverage.
Senator Dick Durbin, thank you so much for your time. Good luck with everything in D.C., sir.
Thank you.